of Cultic Chimeras, Trixie. Chapter 16. Ha! That's it, said Trixie, smirking beside herself as she looked down at the three-headed creature. The thing is tiny compared to the Ursa Minor. Twilight Trixie will fake us easily. She flashed a smile over her partner, only to receive a wide-eyed stare in response. Trixie, do you even know what that is? Twilight said, nodding towards the beast in question. Trixie tilted her head. No, not really, but...
That's right, folks, yelled the announcer over the din that had overtaken the stadium. Before you stands none other than Mittens, a member of the elusive chimera species, which is known not only for its rarity and its fantastic appearance, but also for its unique reaction to magic.
Unique reaction, Trixie repeated, raising an eyebrow. Did he say Mittens? Asked Twilight.
As the more studious among you may know, Chimera Hide has proven to absorb all known forms with the right magic. No enhancements or hexes are going to get past Mittens, so our competitors are certainly going to have to think outside the box for this first event.
Trixie's face fell. Immune to magic. Was that even possible? All down the road, her fellow competitors shuffled and muttered at the sight of the announcement. Clearly, they were all just as uncomfortable as Trixie was. All except for two, that was. Twilight, who was simply frowning more deeply, as if her fears had been confirmed, and Flare. He was just smiling. Typically, annoyingly, he didn't even seem a little bit fazed by the announcement that he was to face a creature clearly, utterly immune to his charms. Determined to mask her own mounting anxiety, Trixie turned her nose up with a grunt and fixed the chimera with a firm frown. Now, I think it's about time we unveil just what this event
entails, don't you? Said the announcer. Kindly turn your eyes to the screen, and without further ado, we'll show you.
As it struck, the competitors all turned to watch the water screen on the opposite side of the stadium. It depicted a red-uniformed Pegasus stallion, fussing his wings experimentally as he waited on the balcony near the top of the stands. With his teeth, he held the strap of a small, one-sided saddlebag. They actually had to think their way to handle a magically immune monster. Well, I could see how Starfleet would fail. You just gotta love how certain bad fic writers, looking at you, Mikey, think that since the character is magic immune, that makes them invincible. And that characters like Twilight wouldn't think of using magic on items around the monster. Or, use items that would affect the creature from the outside, not use magic to affect them directly. I wonder if that's gonna pop up.
Inside that pouch is a small amount of a very rare herb called a nip, the announcer explained. I'm sure some of you can guess what it does just for the name. But let's have a little demonstration. Watch closely and hold on to your seats.
Trixie cocked her head in question as the Pegasus stallion kicked off from his perch and took to the air, gliding down towards the center of the arena. Was he taking off? It was easy to distinguish him from the still-seated crowd, so everybody turned to watch him, rather than the screens. Mittens the Chimera didn't seem to pay him any mind at all. What's he doing? Trixie wondered, squinting to get a better look. As if to answer her question, the Pegasus suddenly flipped his head and flung the pouch towards the ground, just as he was passing over the Chimera, and landed with a near sonic thud at the northern edge of the arena. Mittens the Snakehead turned to investigate. But beyond that, the beast still didn't look interested in the slightest. There was a long pause as the Pegasus stallion wheeled around in midair and returned to his perch, whilst the audience continued to watch the pouch. Seconds passed. Murmurs of confusion began to spread through the crowd. Trixie tried to maintain her casual presence, while silently admiring that she was more than a little curious herself. The snakehead stuck out its tongue and hissed towards the pouch. All at once, the lionhead sniffed loudly and its ears perked up. The ghosthead's eyes suddenly widened, and the creature's entire body seemed to stiffen. Trixie and Twilight both gasped as Mittens suddenly burst into action, kicking out from the ground and launching itself towards the pouch. It overshot, and it crashed to the northern wall with such force that it shook the stands. The audience let out yelps and cries, but Mittens didn't seem fazed. It just scrambled back to its paws and batted to pounce away from the wall. As the creature turned, Tracy couldn't believe her eyes. She saw that what could only be described as an excited grin on the face of the lion head, as it bent down to try and nose the pouch. The other two heads joined in a second layer, and the three of them actually seemed to be fighting to each other to get inside.
You see, folks, the likes of Mittens can't get enough of this herb. It simply can't resist the smell. So, keeping a chimera and its nip apart is all but impossible. And that, fillies and gentle colts, is where our competitors come in.
What? Said Trixie shortly.
Each pair will be given a pouch of nip, and they'll take turns stepping into the arena and trying to keep that pouch away from Mittens as long as possible.
Trixie's eyes went wide, and she instinctively looked to Twilight. For her part, the lavender unicorn managed to only mouth the word wordlessly and shake her head.
Now, before any pony starts to worry, I've been told to assure you that that Mittens is completely tame and completely harmless. Our competitors are in no danger of being flattened, eaten, or otherwise injured during the event, said the announcer reassuringly. But that's not to say that they'll have an easy time of it. Quite the opposite, in fact, and still be operating under a special handicap.
Handicap, came Earth Twister's voice from somewhere down the road. What? Facing down a frenzy magic-proof monster isn't difficult enough?
The handicap, the announcer continued, is that the use of telekinesis is forbidden. Fudge! After all, it wouldn't be much of an event if you could just dangle the padded saddle Mittens' wreath down with it. Aside from that, though, the competitors may use any magic in their repertoire to accomplish their goal.
Tracy scoffed. Aside to telekinesis, we might as well tie our hooves to our chests.
What's the matter, Trixie? Said Flair, showing her a self-satisfied smirk. Surely your repertoire extends beyond a simple push and pull spells by now.
Tracy glared at him. Her cheeks burned red from the barb, but she wasn't given the satisfaction of watching her turn away first. She waited until he coolly turned his gaze back to the chimera, still smiling to himself, before physically snapping her own head to hide away from her blush.
The event will commence in 10 minutes' time with our first pair, so make sure you got all your refreshments, binoculars, etc. You won't want to miss a second of this!
Pardon me, came a familiar voice behind Trixie. What? Demanded the showmare, turning to glare at the red scarf guide that brought him this far. I'm to show you to the way beneath the stadium, the mayor explained with a smile, if you all follow me this way. Trixie groaned as the guide started to lead the way. Like this, on musical chairs. Beside her, Flair gave an annoying little chuckle.
Trixie, I seem to...
Shut up, Flair, she snapped, stomping after the guide. The place felt rather dungeon-like, with the walls and floors of brownish stone lit by flickering candles which hung from the brackets around the room. Aside the door from which they had entered, the only way out was a narrow staircase leading up to the arena itself. It was this staircase that Tracy glared, as if doing so would somehow bring her turn faster. It didn't seem to be working. Tap, tap, tap. 2 pairs had gone up already, leaving 3 in the waiting room. Twilight sat quietly in one corner, having said all 2 words since he gotten down there. She was probably saving her energy, which was a good idea. Tracy might have done the same if she could have convinced herself to stop pacing. Tap, tap, tap. She kept casting glances across the other end of the room, expecting Flair to be shooting her another one of his cocky smirks, but she never caught him. Was he always wrapped up in Husk's conversation with his mare friend? What was her name? Rose? Supermodel indeed. Tracy thought with a shake of her head. Typical Flair. Tap, tap, tap. Meanwhile, the smallest of the male comparators, Sandstorm, napped soundly in the corner. Right now, he and Twilight were about the only ones in the room who weren't ticking her off. Tap, tap. Do you mind? Tracy snapped, rounding on a Earth Twister. The stallion stopped his hoof about an inch from tapping the ground again, as he was slightly frightened looked in Tracy's direction. She glared to show that she was serious, and he probably sat back down on his haunches and deposited his hoof safely on the ground. Satisfied, but hardly becalmed, Tracy gave another huff and went back to her pacing. How much longer was this going to take? What's the matter? So he had to double check to make sure it was Twilight who spoke. The unicorn was still sat down on her haunches, but now she was watching the pacing showmare with inquisitive eyes. What do you think? Said Trixie indignantly. I'm anxious to get out there. It's about Flare, isn't it? Said Twilight. Drawing a faint, shocked gasp, Trixie hurried over to her shoulder to make sure Flare hadn't heard that. When she found, mercifully, that he was still in deep conversation, she turned back to Twilight and glared. Don't say that out loud. And why would you think that anyway? Twilight offered a lopsided smile. No offense, but that kind of reaction confirms it. She got to her hose and walked over to Trixie, lowering her voice as she came closer. Sorry to be blunt. It's just that things aren't quite adding up between you two, and I'm getting curious. What are you talking about? Said Trixie, cocking her head. Well, I know I only just met him, but so far he's been nothing but pleasant. Said Twilight. For the way you talked about him, I had this image of him being a real, She checked to make sure he wasn't listening, before leaning in to whisper, a real jerk. Trixie gave her a funny look. Twilight, I told you before. He's very charming around mirrors. He's not that kind of a jerk. Then what is it? Said Twilight. As far as I could tell, he's been perfectly civil to you too. Trixie got, What? Didn't you hear his comment about my repertoire? Twilight cocked her head. What? No, what did he say? What was that? Trixie found herself struggling. It's not what he said, it's how he said it! Before either of them had a chance to say anything else, another red scarf guide appeared at the base of the stairs, astounding this time. All eyes turned to him as he cleared his throat.
Flare and Desert Rose,
he announced. Trixie rolled her eyes more heavily than she ever could remember doing. Ugh, more waiting. The faceless Flare and his lovely assistant happily followed the guard up the stairs and out of sight. Trixie could have sworn that she got a half-faced smirk as Flare disappeared. Trixie, said Twilight, drawing her attention back to the matter of hoof. If it's all right with you, I'd like to know the whole story. Trixie blinked. The whole story? As in what? The life and times of Flare and Trixie! No, just... What were you two to another? Twilight huffed Twilight. I mean, were you school friends, or work friends, or... She waved a hoof by way of trying to make herself more clear. She needed enough. Trixie understood the question perfectly. And it was a perfectly reasonable question to ask as well. Twilight whispered to understand why her partner was seemingly at random odds with a perfectly charming colt. Fine, said Trixie, proud to hear the word leave her. But you asked, so don't interrupt me. Twilight simply smiled and nodded, eagerly waiting for her to begin. The beginning. See, Trixie turned her eyes to the ceiling and thought. Where to begin? There were a lot of memories. It was a lot of history, but no probably need to hear about all that. She wanted to keep this short. Flare and I grew up in Hoovington, she began. As children, we were very close, like I mentioned before, so naturally, we spent a lot of time together. She had to force herself to focus. Even when I was young, I used to always like to show off my magic whenever on stage I could find. Whether it was a fountain or a bench, my desk in school, sometimes the kitchen table. Twilight giggled at that, spurring Trixie on. Anyway, as close as we were, I was happy to let Flare join me for my performances sometimes. Only, sometimes became often, and often became all the time. The two of us were practically inseparable. Everybody loves our shows. Of course, it was those kids at first, but as we grew older, we started performing officially in high school plays, talent shows. That's when we realized our schools were good for a lot more than just fun. She nodded to herself as the pieces started to fall together. When we were old enough, we set our eyes on the road. I always had a dream of becoming Equestria's most famous showmare, and he wanted to become the face of some magazine or something, I don't know. Anyway, so we didn't think twice. We just packed our bags and set out for the nearest village, determined to start making a name for ourselves. Trixie shrugged, and we were a hit. The village folk we performed paid for us more than enough to get by, and even stayed a while to enjoy their hospitality. We heard about a magic tournament in the next village over, so that's where we are headed next. From there, we just so went with it. She couldn't help but smile as distant memories started flooding back. We were still young, she muttered, and we knew that we had a long way to go, but it still felt like the sort of dream come true. We were happy. Tracy gulped down in nostalgia and shook her head. Now wasn't time to get emotional. In fact, it was never time to get emotional about Flair. Coldly, she forced herself to continue. Somewhere along the line, that changed. I don't know when it happened, but we started getting competitive. It was fun at first, but before long, it was like we were doing more than we were performing. She caused the last say frown on the ground. And it actually went down well with our audiences, believe it or not. They cheered a lot louder, we got paid more for each show. So it seemed like a good thing at the time, but Flair always won. A taunting voice from inside her head reminded her. Every duel, every challenge, Flair managed, somehow, to always beat Trixie in the end. Sometimes it was by a landslide, other times he would taunt her by waiting until the very last second before turning her spells on her head. And every time the audience cheered his name, he would tell them to give Trixie a round of applause as well for her valiant effort or something along those lines, as it was all part of the show. But it wasn't. Trixie had tried her hardest to counter those spells, to one of Flair's gambits and wipe that mocking smirk off his face, only to be foiled at every turn. He was better. But what? Was better! Trixie told herself. He was better, but not anymore. I'm the strong one now. Trixie? Stepping out of her reverie, Trixie turned to Twilight, who had tilted her head at this question. But to what? The Lavender Mare asked again. Oh, said Trixie, sinking herself back into focus. But, it wasn't good for us. I can't remember anyone falling out or argument that did it. But eventually I got sick of it. Of him. She glittered a little. We were more like rivals than anything else, and I had enough of him. Always trying to humiliate me. So I left. Twilight's eyes went wide. You just left? After you known each other since childhood? Tracy shook her head. He wasn't the same cult she knew in Huffington, and she wasn't the same mayor either. Time and circumstances had seen to that. Plenty's changed, Twilight, Tracy said coldly. It looked like Twilight was making to argue, but only for the briefest of moments. She promptly pursed her lips and looked down at the floor, what could only be mistaken for a smile. I guess that's true, she said, but it's not always for the worst. In the light of the dark feelings beginning to creep to Tracy's mind, a warmth of sorts slowly washed over her cheeks. Lasted only for a second, but it was a refreshing reminder she couldn't let the bad stuff get the best of her. Was it hard? Said Twilight, looking up at her again. I mean, leaving him. Not even a little bit, Trixie said immediately. It was the easiest and best decision I ever made. Without him leaning over my shoulder all the time, I could build up my own show, work on my own magic, and make a name for myself. I was a great and powerful Trixie, not some second-rate lovely assistant to Flair. It felt good. Twilight cocked her head and frowned. That sounded a little rehearsed. Trixie doesn't know what you're talking about, said Trixie defiantly. Twilight licked her lips, obviously not certain how to proceed. So, you really don't regret it at all? Trixie closed her eyes and shook her head with such confidence that, when she opened again and met Twilight's gaze, she was struck by a flash of brilliance. I don't regret it, she said, pausing only to flash Twilight the most self-assured smirk she could muster. Because if I hadn't gone solo, I might never have gotten the chance to meet you, Twilight Sparkle. Lavender Unicorn stared dumbly back at Trixie, blinking at common times as she took in the perfectly delivered statement. She was obviously at a loss for words. Her reddened cheeks and smile tugging at her lips spoke for her just fine. Eventually, she sought to turn away to hide these signals from Trixie, but not nearly quickly enough that the Silmare missed them. Stop doing that! Stop doing that, Twilight muttered quietly. Trixie's triumphant smirk didn't falter. I'll stop doing it when you stop blushing, she countered. In response, Twilight spun him around completely, showing her tail to Trixie whilst muttering something to the effect of not blushing. Trixie couldn't help but giggle at the adorable display. They fell into a sort of companionable silence, and Trixie's smile got staying on constantly on her face for the seconds or minutes as he waited. Her urge to see was gone now, and whether it was that was due to Flare being out of sight or to her little exchange from Twilight, Trixie was grateful. Earth Twister and Sandstorm were the next pair to be called up to the arena, but Trixie really didn't mind. They were obviously saving the best for last, which made sense, considering this was a magic show. Besides, the wait didn't take long at all. The guy returned no more 5 minutes later and cleared his throat.
The great and powerful Trixie and...
Yes, we got that, Trixie said, masterfully managing an irritated tone despite her excitement. She tried 4 words, only for Twilight to join her before following the guide up the staircase. The hotel from which they ascended was also faintly candlelit like the laying room. The whole place had a very medieval feel to it. For her part, though, Trixie could have cared less about the decor, not with what was waiting for her at the top of that stairwell. Fame, attention, applause, and a hairy-headed, magic-proof monster, she reminded herself. Mittens didn't really seem like such a big deal next to all that. Out of the corner of her eye, she couldn't help but notice the frown on Twilight's face. What? She asked. You didn't let him say my title, Twilight pouted. Trixie had to stifle a giggle at that. Oh, my apologies. Well educated and well-read, Twilight Sparkle. Getting a taste for it, are we? She said teasingly, but didn't close the lower her voice. Maybe you'd like me to call you that from now on? Oh, go away, Twilight laughed, bumping into her side. As they crested to the top of the staircase, they came before a 2-pony-wide metal portcullis, beyond which the late morning sunlight glared down on the great stonework of the arena. The stallion leading them took up position beside the lever on the left hoof wall. I swear to God, if this fic has a third act breakup, where we know it's absolutely pointless because we know the 2 girls are going to get together by the end, I am going to be miffed! A second stallion stood beside the great took Trixie's eye. The Earth Pony teamer who introduced Mittens. He looked up to younger close. Trixie guessed he couldn't have been much older than herself or Twilight. Howdy, fellas! He greeted. How are you both doing? Excited, I'm sure. Doing the event is rubbing our competition's faces. Of course I'm excited, said Trixie, smirking to herself. That's the spirit, cheered the tamer. Now, I'm just here to answer any questions you might have about Mittens or the event, so y'all could go in there with a clear headlight. Trixie has no questions. Let's just... actually, Twilight broke in, stepping forwards. There is one thing, if that's okay with you. She glanced over at Trixie. Showmare, feeling a little psyched out, hesitated before nodding dumbly. Twilight flashed her a grateful smile before turning back to the tamer. I just wanted to ask, isn't this kind of cruel? I mean, keeping the nip away from Mittens. Want to get mad? Mad? You kidding? Chuckled the tamer. No, Mittens loves it. He loves the sport, and the exercise does him a world of good to boot. Honestly, you should have seen his greens. He shook his head and smiled beside himself. So, it really is safe then, said Twilight doubtfully. You won't get mad or overexcited or anything? Thick? You're making this too tempting for fate. The tamer shrugged away towards the arena. Never hurt any pony yet, and I've been playing this game with him for years. Although I haven't got any magic, so it's not as challenging for him when I do it. But yeah, you're safe. I'll step in if anything goes wrong. Trust me, I'm a professional. With a proud smile, he turned his body to reveal his cutie mark. A lion, snake, and go-ahead, underlaid by a bright pink heart. Twilight and Trixie each raised an eyebrow.
Fillies and gentlecolts, thank you for your patience!
Katie announced his voice from outside.
It's now time for our final performance of the morning, and it's from a pair that I, personally, have been looking forward to!
As if receiving his cue, the red uniformed stallion suddenly pulled the lever, and the portcullis began lifting from the ground, opening a path into the arena. Trixie felt the excitement well up in her chest, and actually had to bite her lips to keep from squealing. To Trixie's pleasant surprise, Twilight seemed to be smiling too, albeit more modestly. It would do for a start. Together, they put their best foes forward and strode out into the sunlight, the roars and cheers from the crowd.
And here they are, the great and powerful Trixie and the educated and well-read Twilight Sparkle! It's just as much of a mouthful the second time around. Let's hear it for these two!
Trixie took a deep and content breath to close her eyes, reveling in the wondrous attention and reverence of her audience. It was an incredible feeling, louder and more fervent than any applause he ever had before, as he hadn't even won yet. The very thought of it even greater cheers to be brought a wide grin to her face. The two of them came to a stop in the very center of the arena and faced a giant portcullis in the western wall, behind which Mittens no doubt waited in the darkness. In the corner of her eye, Trixie caught sight of the comparator's box, a certain stallion looking down at her from within. She no more than saw the smirk on his face. He will be smiling when Twilight and I thrust his time, she thought to herself. We'll see who humiliates who this time. Okay, I can see desire going a couple of ways, folks. Let's get the betting board on the screen! Ding! Our first option is a simple one. Trixie and Twilight could possibly lose this match. This will set up some aggression, some anger towards each other, and allow the two to start building up confidence to actually win or tie the next round. 2. Trixie can actually tie this round. This will actually make her feel mid and kind of lose a little bit of her confidence, only to be brought back to Twilight after some major Trixie snuggling. And 3. Trixie wins. Which will be an awesome one, but kind of boring too. Let's find out where this fit goes. With a smirk and a defiant grunt, the showmare lifted her nose and fixed her gaze on the giant grate again. Just as it started looking up from the ground, she could almost feel the tension coming off of Twilight. At her side, Trixie had to admit feeling a little threatful herself. A heavy clunk echoed across the steam as the grate locked itself fully open. In the darkness, Trixie could make out about 3 pairs of eyes. A large paw crept out. It waited. It was joined by a second. The head of the lion was the first to emerge from the dark curtain. Eyes trained slowly on Trixie, and the mouth set in a firm line. His brothers joined it, the eyes of a snake and goat-heads pervading the stance as the chimera stepped forth. As the huge portcullis constantly lowered itself shut, the beast took a few more steps forward before coming to a staring stop. Trixie's mouth suddenly became rather dry. Mittens hadn't really seen that big from up in the stands. On her side, Twilight made a gulping nose. Penny? Squeaked the Leopard Unicorn. Trixie managed a wide-eyed nod. Of course. Do you have any idea what we're going to do? Twilight gave a nervous chuckle. Not a clue. It's kind of exciting, really. Exciting! Trixie repeated, eyeing the beast slowly wagging Scorpion Tail. She lowered herself into a steady position. You really are getting a taste for this. A single stretched salad bag landed in front of them. A Pegasus who apparently dropped it was quick to fly away, back towards its perch atop the stands. Mittens made an inquisitive snort.
As before, the timer starts when Mittens makes his first move, said the announcer. I'd like to wish the two of you good luck from all of us here in safety. Remember, absolutely no telekinesis allowed. Stay calm, don't panic, and whoa, he's off!
Not worrying, Mittens surged forwards, sinking to the ground with sudden force. The lion head wore a crazed grin as its tongue trailed from its mouth, giving it a sleekly deranged look, the likes of which Trixie had never seen. Getting away suddenly seemed like a very good idea, but Trixie's host refused to do anything, despite knowing full well she was about to enter a very painful situation. Mittens bounded closer, beyond him in seconds, until he was frozen just as Trixie. Trixie's mind started fading into darkness. Speak, scream, move! Nothing worked! The only thing that made any sense was the slow-motion image of the charging chimera and its crazy eyes. Its stumbling paws took to stadium, but the sound was muffled. The crowd was a low hum, heartbeat in their ears, and then, Gah! Trixie! Twilight's voice pulled Trixie back into reality. But she didn't have time to react as the Leopard Unicorn leapt down, picked up the pads with her teeth, and crossed their necks in a hug. The Sailormare's eyes widened to accommodate the massive chimera bounding down upon them. And then it was gone. Flashlight and the world twisted, and the next thing Trixie knew, she was staring on a wall on the opposite side of the arena. Oof! Twilight spat the pouch from her mouth and drew back to meet Trixie's eyes with a look of panic concern. Trixie, are you okay? Yes, Trixie guessed. What? I teleported us, said Twilight, turning to look at something over Trixie's shoulder. Trixie followed her eyes over to the other side of the arena. There stood Mittens, looking thoroughly dazed and confused as it stumbled forward, as if it just hit its head against the wall. Heads, even.
Wow! For a minute there, I thought we were in for a 5-second round, but wow! Mittens didn't even know what hit him. I haven't seen a spell like that in a long time.
Thinking to herself, Trixie finally managed to register what had just happened during that split second. Twilight saved her again. Not necessarily from harm, but from humiliation at least. It would have been just as bad, not worse. There would be a time later to scold herself for freezing up. For now, Twilight offered Twilight a smile and a quiet thank you. Naturally, Twilight just gave a dismissive shake of her head and returned the smile. On the other side of the arena, Mittens was starting to regain his balance. There wasn't a lot of time. Trixie, said Twilight, I think I can confuse it some more. I need you to run that way, over towards the grate. I'll take the nip and circle around the other way. What? Why? It'll go straight for you, said Trixie disillusionedly. Twilight glanced tersely to the side. Well, do you have any ideas? She racked her brain, but nothing had failed her. So she supposed she could try to throw Mittens off with some stage magic. But after that, it didn't take much for her friend. It's a lot easier to teleport by myself, said Twilight. Going together would just take up more mana. You need to think of our next move while I distract it, okay? Trixie opened her mouth and closed it. They looked towards the Chimera across the way, the lion head of which had already turned to face them. There wasn't time to argue as to whether it was the best plan. It was a plan and would have to do. Okay, Trixie managed, starting to take a few steps backwards. She kept Twilight's eyes in the center of her view, reluctant to break away from those violet orbs. The words good luck were lost on her tongue, but Twilight seemed to get the message. A short, vigorous roll signaled Mittens' recovery. Twilight broke eye contact. As some spells seemed to break along with it, Trixie watched the brave and slightly crazy lavender unicorn turn and gallop away, skirting the wall of the arena. The beast broke into a charge towards her, eyes locked determinedly upon the pouch, until it began. Forcing her hose into action, Trixie spun around to gallop in the opposite direction, towards the largest grate, as Twilight told her. She watched over her shoulder as Mittens advanced on her partner. Quite hadn't gotten very far by comparison. In seconds, Mittens was on Twilight again, lunging forwards to try to steal the pouch. Twilight was gone in a flash, appearing again on the other side of the arena. The beast managed to grind itself to a halt before hitting the wall. It only took a couple of seconds for it to recover before storming off after Twilight again. Twilight herself kept up after impressive for a while. Mittens would charge her, she would advance in the nick of time, and reappear somewhere else. Each time it would be a little closer, and each time Mittens got a lot faster. Trixie's attempt to come up with a plan took second place to her watching in awe of the lavender unicorn flashing around the arena like lightning. The crowd cheered and applauded for every dodge, and Trixie almost had to fight the urge to do the same. It literally was incredible. If I could do magic like that. But it wasn't to last forever. 6 or 7 teleports later, Mittens drew herself up, to let out another roar and unfurled its wings. 3 ponies long in each way. It led towards Twilight. The gasping cries from the audience covered the entire arena in a single bound, and crashing down with such force it shook the ground. Twilight was gone when it got there, of course, but the Chimera didn't even pause to recover before jumping again and again, and again. The lavender unicorn having to teleport again almost as soon as he reappeared each time.
Looks like Mittens has gone wise to the trick, yelled the announcer. I hope these two have something else up their sleeves, otherwise they're in trouble.
He was right. When Slim had no time to rest, even Great Twilight Sparkles could wear herself out before long. What could Trixie do about it? She had to come up with any kind of plan. Her own repertoire of spells didn't really extend beyond stage magic, and pulling a bouquet of flowers from behind Mittens' ear didn't promise to help much. Twilight's final teleport saw her appearing in the middle of the arena, breathless and obviously exhausted. True to form, the Chimera showed no such fatigue, pouncing again almost immediately. With a gasp, Trixie hurried forwards on instinct, hoping to help somehow. Maybe take the pouch and make a break for it? But Mittens was much faster. It was reached Twilight before she did. From the center of the arena came a surge of magic. The time it took Trixie to blink, Twilight becomes surrounded by a hemisphere of purple light. A sealed spell. Trixie grounded her hose to a halt, not even halfway there. As Mittens crashed down and rose to loom over the shell, with the same excited grin as before, the lion darted down to retrieve its prize. Only to hit his nose on the force field dropped back. The snake hissed at the shield, whilst the lion to go blinked, as it dumbstruck. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like the beast might actually be given pause. It was to give Twilight time to catch breath, but it was not to be. A few seconds was all it took before Mittens poked the barrier again with his nose. The other two heads moved from different angles to do the same, whilst the beast started batting the side with his paws, trying to find some way in. Twilight was struggling. Her body was low, and she had her face screwed up in concentration.
It looks like Twilight Sparkle is struggling, folks. What's her partner up to? Could this be part of their plan?
Trixie snarled, wishing he would shut up. As if it wasn't hard to think already, with stress of watching a vicious chimera batter down on her friend. Mittens put his paws on either side of the shield and started to lift it off. This was it. There was no time. If Stace Magic was all she could come up with, the Stace Magic would have to do. Twilight! Send it here! She yelled, flailing her hoof frantically to get her partner's attention. However, the unicorn craned an eye open, saw Trixie's gesture, closed it again painfully. She dropped the pouch, and her shield flickered ominously. Then with a faint flash, the pouch appeared in Trixie's hooves. Mittens, curious to stopped abruptly. An eerie, unexpected silence fell over the stadium. As the beast sniffed the air and turned its head so every which way his target, Trixie hurried forward and scooped at the pouch over her mouth, determination burning in her chest. My turn. Mittens rounded upon Trixie. Its eyes scanned her face first, and then moved down into the pouch. With its attention drawn, Twilight could finally drop her shield and catch her breath. Now all Trixie had to do was keep it distracted until the leopard unicorn could recover and get back in the game. All she had to do. The chimera surged forwards. Inspired or driven mad by Twilight's valiant efforts, Trixie felt a renewed confidence taking hold. She gulped and shifted her neck, then galloped straight towards Mittens, drawing more shocked gasps from the audience. The announcer was yelling something too, but Trixie blocked it out. She needed to focus. She lifted up her horn and aimed it towards the ground in front of Mittens' paws, summoning forth a small, brown paper bag. When the bag hit the ground, it ripped open, and out rolled a dozen tiny marbles, spraying out in every direction. But Mittens was too massive. The glass balls shattered beneath his paws and charred on, unhindered. You know, in most kids' films, that whole entire marbles thing actually works. Barely phased, Trixie tried another gambit. She summoned a bouquet of flowers right in front of the lion's head's nose, and collided with them headlong, sending a cloud of petals and pollen was just enough to make it sneeze, a little more than recovered, and continued his charge. This is not my forte! Trixie screamed inwardly, narrowing her eyes for one last smell before the beast reached her. From her horns, she brought forth a brilliant, flaming flash of light, directed straight towards Mittens. All six of his eyes screwed up at once, and let out wild howls of shock from each of his heads as one of its paws slid down from beneath. Thinking fast, Trixie changed the direction and galloped to the side as Mittens came crashing down to the ground, sliding to a halt where he had been standing just a second before. When the floor stopped shaking and the vibrations stopped making her ears ring, she heard roaring cheers from the stands. The showman felt a sense of euphoria as he realized that he just managed to land an attack. With Mittens down for a moment, though he was rapidly blinking to clear his eyes and struggling to get back on his paws, Trixie chanced to look at Twilight. The leopard unicorn sat in her haunches in the center of the arena, eyes still closed and catching her breath. That she hadn't seen Trixie's awesome spellcast was a bit of a put-down, but there would be other chances. Another idea started forming within her mind as she dived towards the fall hall of the arena. There was one trick she always used when she wanted to beat a nasty retreat, and she could alter it just a little. Trixie stopped, knelt down, and hurriedly put the pouch to one side, knowing she had to be quick. She channeled magic to her horn and touched it to the ground, pouring the spell into the stonework beneath her. A glyph of glowing magenta appeared in the stone, fading into nothingness a second later. Trixie smirked. With the trap laid, she grabbed the pouch and dashed onwards, making sure to keep a clear line between herself, Mittens, and the now hidden magic trigger. It was only a few seconds before the clueless chimera started giving chase. Trixie continued to run, slowing down when she neared the wall, finally coming to a very calm stop as she turned to face the coming Mittens. Well, kind of calm stop, but she heard as he came across very calm. The beast started towards her, but Trixie stood her ground. Mittens grinned and lowered his head, obviously thinking it had her trapped. How wrong it was. Just a few more steps in. Yes! Trixie cheered as her cliff lit up in front of the chimera, who didn't even have time to react before a cloud of smoke blew up in his faces. It reared up in surprise as each of its heads got a mouth and nose full of the fumes, sending fits of coughing and sputtering. Pressing her advantage, Trixie sent forth a barrage of magical fireworks from her horn, setting them off between her and Mittens. The colors never did show up well in the daylight, but the sound was perfect. The chimera drew back from the barbarian noise, an obvious awe of Trixie's power. Trixie herself smirked more wildly. She was in her element now, using her magic to convince her audience she had more power over it than it really did. And believing the illusion, in turn, made it true. What's next? A lightning? Another light spell? She wondered. She took a second to let herself cool down from the rapid casting. Maybe I could try using its tail for some kind of rope trick. All of a sudden, Mittens took himself and hopped backwards, landing in a ready-to-pounce pose. His wings shot out. His eyes all narrowed and a lion head grunted in the air through his nose. Oh, Trixie's smirk fell. It's looking at me. Mittens pounced. It was probably bluffing. It really wouldn't try to eat her or squash her or anything. Even so, finding herself unable to think of a spell to counter the attack, Trixie's urge to run was prevalent. And run she would have, and not for the fishness, completely out of nowhere, a gust of wind that blasted her face a few seconds later. Her mane blew out of order. Her cape billowed out behind her. She actually had to screw up her eyes to protect them. The gale was so strong, simply lifting a hoof from the ground would be enough to send her flying. With great difficulty, she managed to sprint up towards Mittens. It was still in midair, and still coming straight towards her, though its flight path looked pretty erratic. The only thing Trixie could think to do was to miss her confusion and panic, was to make herself small as possible and cling to the ground for dear life. The Chimera crashed to the wall overhead. The wind stopped immediately. And another still eerily silence prevailed. For one heart-stopping moment, it looked like Mittens was going to collapse right on top of her. But as the beast fell, it pushed off from the wall with one foreleg, twisted its body, and fell backwards instead. It crashed down with a ground-shaking thud and rolled. In a rather impressive display of deftness for something that size, it used the momentum to push off from the ground and rolled in midair. It doubled once more, finally landing on all fours and grinding itself to a halt, some way away from Trixie, who simply got to express the blankness of her mind. A familiar flash of light heralded the appearance of Twilight sparkle on her side, the sight of whom held Trixie right up. "Twilight!" she said, scowling at her host. "Was it you?" "Yes, I used a wind spell," said Twilight proudly. Trixie blinked and smiled. "Wind spell? That was quick thinking. How did you know it wouldn't fall on me?" "Well, Twilight bit her lip and glanced aside. Trixie narrowed her eyes. "You did know it wouldn't fall on me, right?" Twilight scratched her neck awkwardly. She pointed at Mittens. "It's coming this way!" A quick glance revealed that the beast was, indeed, fully recovered, and charging them again. This time it was uncomfortably close already. Panicking, Trixie turned to Twilight. "Can't you do something?" "Like what?" Twilight said, showing her a look. "Well, you could create an illusion of the pouch, forcing the creature to actually try to sniff and try to figure out which pouch was available. The creature may be immune to magic, but the pouch is not. Create several different pouches, forcing the creature to start sniffing through them for several minutes until he actually found the right one. Put the pouch within a small little steel case, and then play keep away with the cage, only to reveal that it was a fake case this entire time. Trixie could, in fact, actually just freeze the pouch in a block. Twilight could freeze the pouch in a block of ice and allow Trixie to melt the pouch, making it look like it had melted, when instead, Trixie had actually used the power of illusion to actually make the pouch appear somewhere else, i.e., somewhere far away from the creature, allowing the creature to continue walking around in dumbness until he actually found it. And even if we were to assume that Trixie could just do stage magic, Trixie can always just use a matter of illusions and trickery that you would commonly see in certain stage shows, i.e. David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, or my personal favorite. Let's see. Dang, I know this guy. He was he played a mad scientist on this one magic show. It was awesome. I'll get back to you on that. Trixie shook her head hopelessly and stared back towards the wall. Eyes wide as places to watch Mittens bear down upon him. "Shield will do!" she blurted out. Just in time, a purple dome shot up and around the two of them, with barely enough room to take a single step in each direction. Trixie breathed a relieved sigh, not really caring about living space right now. "Seriously, folks, go watch more magic shows. They will give you inspiration for how to properly use illusions." The Chimera ground its paws to a halt, destroyed the dome and twisted its body, bringing its skull head down like some battering ram. Bounced off of a gaze bob, but the other head simply shook its face, prodding and striking, looking for a weakness like before. "What now?" grunted Twilight, giving Trixie a one-eyed look while she struggled to maintain the spell. Trixie racked her brain. Looking up at the clear sky was all it took to spark her inspiration. "How about do some illusions?" Hastily, she lifted her horn and poured her magic into it, focusing on a spot over Mittens' head. Dark favor began to swirl in the air. casting eerie shadows around the ground as they slowly clustered together. Oh, I got another one. Use some illusions with the pouch to force Mittens to start creating a rut within the ground. This rut will eventually force Mittens to be forced stuck into the ground and trapped in the rut. Then you can bury Mittens so that way only its heads are sticking out and trapping it. A black cloud began to take shape overhead, and a spark of electricity arced through it, signaling the spell was ready. Hurry! Twilight pleaded. Trixie didn't need telling twice. So he flicked her horn and a bolt of lightning lashed down from the ground, striking the ground near one of the beast's paws and scorching the stonework. Mittens jumped back in fright, almost tripping himself to get away from the impact. Seizing her advantage, Trixie brought down another bolt to his side. Mittens recoiled again, jumping further this time and letting out a distorted howl. With some of the pressure taken out of Twilight, the Laughter Unicorn was able to open her eyes to see what's going on. What's it doing? She asked. Another bolt crossed down outside the dome. Mittens dared not to approach. It's afraid of lightning, Trixie guessed. All she knew was working. She wasn't about to complain about the first surefire weapon she had against the creature. And of course, no matter how scared it was, Mittens was driven. Under the fourth bolt, he started shaking himself. Apparently the shock was wearing off. During the pause, it bounded forwards to make another pass at the nip. Trixie brought a bolt down in front of the beast. It was enough to make it stumble back again. Trixie smirked beside herself. Ha! Trixie has found your weakness. We have you now, Mittens. You're doing really well, Twilight said encouragingly. Just be careful not to hit the shield. Trixie flapped back her mane. I won't hit the shield. I happen to be an expert. Mittens interrupted her with a roar as Lionhead recovered from fright at the latest bolt. Hey! Trixie snapped, shooting Mittens a glare. Don't interrupt the great and powerful Trixie! She brought another bolt down, this one striking the base straight on the rump. Instead of leaving a scorch mark, as Trixie intended, the lightning strike seemingly dispersed into Mittens' coat. It gave a half yelp, as it expected to feel pain, but none came. When it realized this, Mittens glanced between Trixie, its own rump, and the cloud, apparently putting the pieces together. Trixie's self-satisfied smirk tried on her face. When Twilight threw her the dirtiest of looks, the showmare responded with a sheepish grin. Oops. In a terrible moment, Mittens reared up and batted the cloud with his paw, pushed it straight down on top of its shield. Trixie recoiled from the edge of the barrier as electricity began to course through it. And then it shattered. With a sound reminiscent of shattering glass, the barrier broke into hundreds of tiny translucent shards, which drifted downwards as they faded from existence. Twilight, after her spell had been so suddenly and unexpectedly overpowered, she offered a dizzy smile and giggled as he toppled over to her side. Now that the only thing that stood between Mittens and his pride was Trixie, and by the looks of the Chimera's faces, it knew this. What it didn't know was, Trixie wasn't going to give up without a fight. She planted herself firmly above the pouch of nip, and started to channel another smokescreen spell into her horn as Mittens drew closer. Trixie, Luna! No! The go-ahead leaned across and bit on Trixie's tail, lifted in the air, and without even courtesy to let her finish the spell, suddenly found herself hanging upside down. Trixie squealed with her hooves. Hey, that's not fair! Let go! While she was occupied, the lion snakeheads moved towards the unguarded pouch. No! Trixie cried.
That's it! The announcer confirmed. Stop the clock! Mittens says to pouch. It's all over! What a spectacular show!
Trixie groaned and let her head hang. It was applause rang out to the stadium. She knew they were fault they were lost. Even if she hadn't lasted out with the lightning spell, they might have at least gotten another 20 seconds on the clock. Of course, she knew that one of them would tire out and make a mistake eventually, but she's kind of hoping it wasn't be her. Hey Trixie, look on the bright side. This wasn't a run out the clock, this was a how long you can last moment. And now the author is probably going to put us all in suspense and trying to figure out what time they needed to beat. Joy. Oh, I'm not saying it's bad. I do like the suspense. Then again, she would never wish for Twilight to make a mistake on her first performance either. After all, her nerves were as bad enough as it was. Ugh, maybe it would help if I wasn't looking at this upside down, she mused. Hey you, she called up, trying to look up at the goat that held her. Congratulations, you got your nip. Now put Trixie down. There was a short pause. Next thing Trixie knew, she was on her belly on the stone floor, and Mittens was bounding off to another part of the arena to show his prize. Trixie crumpled to herself as she got her to her hose. What? Said Twilight, stirring her semi-conscious state. Where am I? Trixie coolly bloated off the shoulders of her cape. One graceful flap from where you were 10 seconds ago. Oh, wake up, Twilight Sparkle. Twilight complied, blinking the dizziness from her eyes and craning her neck to get a good look around. As he realized he was laying on cold, hard stone, she quickly got to her hose. Oh, right, sorry, Her eyes widened as they settled upon Mittens across the way. Oh no, we lost? Not necessarily, said Trixie, determined to keep her image of coolness for the audience. We still don't know what our time was, compared to the others. But she didn't need to know in order to feel the sneaking, anxious sense that it wasn't good enough.
An excellent performance, you two, came the announcer's voice. Some impressive raw power from one and another creative use of stage messing from the other. Didn't I tell you these two were a pair to watch, Phillies and Gentle Colts?
Jesse gave a start as the arena wall began to emit a low grumble. First, he couldn't tell that anything was happening, but then several long stone slabs sliding outwards, forming a staircase leading all this way up to the wall.
Please, con them up and rest your weary hooves. You earned it after that performance.
Jesse cast a sideless glance at Twilight before wordlessly staring forwards. Leather Unicorn hastened alongside her to throw a look of concern. You seem upset, Twilight said. There was a short pause before her ears drooped a little. Did I mess up? Tracy sighed. No, you didn't. I did. Right in front of Flare, too, she added, showing Clara up towards his seat. No doubt he'll be rubbing it in my face the moment we get up there. Oh, said Twilight, clearly not sure she was allowed to be relieved as well as sympathetic. Well, I'll stick up for you if he gives you trouble, she said awkwardly. At that, Tracy couldn't help but give a little chuckle. I can handle Flare, Twilight. She saw her smile. But, thank you. At the top of the stairs, they found themselves right beside the entrance to the comparators box. The seats were all in a single row, just as before. So they had no option but to file in, and naturally, the pony sitting across to them was the Fexus Flare, offering him his little, welcoming smile. Despite Trixie's assurances she could handle it, she found herself clumsily pushed aside by Twilight, who clamored to get in first. The Azure Unicorn made her to call out on it, but quickly found that she didn't really want to. Instead, she settled for smiling at her friend's kindness and filling in before her. To inform, Flare's voice kicked up as soon as Trixie's flank hit the seat. To her surprise, however, he wasn't addressing her. That, Twilight Sparkle, was a fantastic display of magic, he said, flashing the mirror smile. Particularly that wind spell. I've never seen anything quite like it. Where did you learn all that? Clearly caught off guard, Twilight stammered. Oh, thank you. I learned everything I know from the princess. In books. I read a lot of books. Fascinating, said Flare. A student of the princess. Don't you think Trixie was good too? Said Twilight, leaning back and smiling expectantly as he gave him a clear line of sight to one another. I mean, I thought her smokescreen trap was clever. I never even thought of using glyphs. Trixie stifled an eye roll. She knew Twilight was trying to be helpful, but of course, said Flare, turning a smile on Trixie. Here it comes. I had my doubts, Trixie, but you've really improved a lot since our last encounter, he said. I'm very impressed. You know, after seeing that, imagining you fighting an Ursa Minor doesn't seem out of place at all. Trixie raised an eyebrow. I certainly hope we get a chance to test our skills against one another later at the display, Flare continued. Just like the good old days. It'd be nice. Just like... It was a rhetorical question. He turned his face outwards towards the arena a second later. When Twilight threw her a did I do good smile, Trixie humored her by returning it, before staring down at her lap to puzzle over Flare's words. Why would he be so nice? She wondered. He didn't even tease me about the marbles, or stupid mess with the lightning. It doesn't... A disturbing flash crossed her mind. She glanced at Flare and the self-satisfying smirk on her face. Then she glanced at Twilight and the content smile out of hers. Trixie blinked. Can't be, she told herself, forcing her eyes back down to the arena, thoroughly denying the train of thought.
Well, well, Phillies and Gentle Colts, that brings us to the end of the event, said the announcer. Let's all give a big hoof to Mittens for being such a great sport and not maiming any pony! Mittens, every pony!
The Chimera, waiting beside his tamer just outside the portcullis, puffed out his chest and smiled as the sound of applause reached his ears. Trixie grunted amusedly. Obviously, there was a bit of Somere in him, too. As the praise died down, he and his tamer turned and made their way into the darkness in the grate, closed behind them.
That was something, eh, folks? I'm exhausted for just having to watch those performances! Now, thanks to our competitors for putting on such a great show, I think we can all agree that they each deserve another applause! But first, it's time to reveal the real winners of the first event!
Trixie sat on her seat, her ears perked up, and eyes staring attentively towards the closest wire screen.
First up, with a difference of only 3 seconds between them, we have Violet Nightshade in 5th place, followed by Baydasher and Cherry Blossom in 4th.
Leopold stared up as the screen blurred to show each of them in turn. The Ebon-colored pair in 5th place looked a little dejected. This was understandable. As the other pair, Baydasher still sat with footlights folded, firm frown on his face. Cherry Blossom was just as serene and calmly as happy as ever. What he felt, Trixie had no idea.
In 3rd place, by a margin of 7 seconds, the brothers Earth Twister and Sandstorm!
Good, not bad, Twister commented, bumping hose with his brother in the midst of their slightly louder applause. Trixie rolled in her eyes. Who in their right mind could call 3rd place not bad?
And 2nd place!
Trixie's eyes snapped wide, only realizing her name hadn't been called yet.
By a margin of 19 seconds!
As he glanced over at Flare, who looked just as calm as ever. For her part, Trixie's heart was starting to hammer faster. The sinking frown on Twilight's face said that she was in the same ship.
And now, to annoy the audience listening to this, we will wait for another total 10 to 15 seconds just to heighten tension. Ready, set, go! And that was 15 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Are you pissed off at the reader yet? Indeed. This lovely couple. It's Desert Rose and Flare. Ha!
Trixie let out a noise somewhere between a gasp, giggle, and released sigh, as applause broke out around the stands. At her side, Twilight cut her hose over her mouth and hid a familiar noise. But that means...
That's right, folks. You all know what that means. Taking place by an utter landslide of 37 seconds more than the closest pair, I give you the great and powerful Trixie and the educated and well-read Twilight Sparkle!
The applause broke out from them as even greater than the one that greeted them when they stepped into the arena. Trixie flashed her most gracefully amazing smirk as the camera turned to her, drawing her triumphant space into the screens for every pony to see. This was still just a stepping stone. The real applause and adoration would come right at the end. There's still a ways to go yet. She turned her smirk to the side and saw a beaming grin on Twilight's face as he gazed around at her adoring audience. Ha! Trixie said shortly, stepping Twilight out of her great gaze and drawing a questioning look. I knew there was a Somere in there somewhere. Twilight opened her mouth, closed it again, simply gave a little mirthful chuckle before going back to her reveling. Trixie leaned forward to get a look at Flare, hoping he catch a glimpse of a pouch snarl something. What he saw instead was a smile as Flare clapped a hoof against the stonework. He was clapping.
Congratulations, Trixie,
he said, pausing to offer a wink. You earned it. Trixie literally had to fight herself to keep her jaw from dropping. Whatever it was, in shock or outrage or something else entirely, she didn't know. Whatever the case, she managed to overpower herself for a moment of staring and pulled herself back into the seat. What's he playing at? She asked herself. Why is he being so...
Congratulations to you as well, Twilight,
came Flare's voice.
You truly are talented.
So Trixie outright refused to turn and look. So he saw Flare shaking Trixie's hoof out of the corner of her eye. Something started to boil in her chest. She kept a lid on it. This wasn't the time to let him get to her. She just won. She beat him. Not directly, but it was still a start. The snort was enough to smile about.
All right, let's settle down. Congratulations to our winners, and another warm thank you to everybody for their spectacular performances. And to those of you who didn't do as well as you hoped, don't fret. Tomorrow is your chance to redeem yourselves.
Trixie's ears perked up again.
That's right. The second event will be held tomorrow. The unveiling will be at noon at this time around to allow for our competitors to rest up for a bit. But that's the only break they'll be getting. Following the unveiling, they'll be thrown straight into the event. No practice, no preparation, no warning. Well, I that one. Good luck to you all. Now go and rest up. With
all the information she needed in tow, that was one success, and Trixie was all too happy to take to heart. She rose to her host, rolled her neck, and smiled towards the sky. Got a plan? Twilight guessed, still in her seat. Trixie smirked and shook her head. No, after that. She nodded towards Urena. I just need to do something to relax. Twilight crooked her brow. Something like going home and collapsing on my couch, said Trixie lightly. Twilight giggled. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Oh, Trixie said, throwing her a sly smile. Then maybe Trixie should keep our room's complimentary bottle of champagne to herself. Twilight's eyes widened a little. Oh. Trixie proffered a huff and a funny smile. Shall we?
Oh, my. I know they're not officially a couple yet, but oh, my. If this is going where I think it's going, I might need to turn on the rating. Woo!